Individuals and businesses with tax problems. Listen carefully. If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, U.S. Tax Shield can help you take back control. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Our team of tax attorneys can stop collections and get you protected. U.S. Tax Shield offers a price protection guaranteed quote to get you protected today. U.S. Tax Shield is A+ rated with the BBB, so call 800-479-2697. U.S. Tax Shield, 800-479-2697.
Would you wait several days for your shower to get hot? Would you wait several days to feel the full effect of relief from your nasal congestion? Flonase Allergy Relief Nasal Spray could take that long.
Ugh.
But if you're congested now and you want powerful relief now, use Afrin No Drip. Afrin starts working in seconds and keeps working for 12 hours. So why wait several days to feel the full effect? When you can start to get relief in seconds with Afrin. Afrin, powerful congestion relief without the wait. Use as directed.
A Boston conservative in the cradle of liberty. You'll want to listen when Chuck Morse speaks.
And good afternoon. Chuck Morse speaks Monday through Friday, 10 till noon Eastern Standard Time, right here at the USA Radio Networks. Welcome to the program, 919-896-8198, 919-896-8198. Just here as a program note, today in hour number 2, I'm going to be joined by Matt Van Dyke and Colonel Sargis Sangari, who will be calling in from Iraq. We're going to be getting some first-hand news and possibly some breaking news with regard to what is going on over there. Right now we're joined by Professor Joy Ladin. Professor Ladin is the Gottsman Professor of English at Yeshiva University Stern College. She's published 5 books of poetry, including Psalms, from which she will, in 2008, she became the first openly transgender employee of an Orthodox Jewish institution when she returned to teaching as a woman after earning tenure as a man. Joy, thanks for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Joy, I heard you make a presentation here in Boston at my synagogue, and that is what prompted me to call you today. My concern is issues of Judaism, and what I want to ask you about is not meant in any way personally. In fact, my daughter actually attended a talk you gave later that day, and she's a big admirer, so this isn't personal. But I have to say that I found your presentation and your interpretation of Judaism to be disingenuous and blasphemous, actually.
That actually sounds kind of personal. Can you tell me what you mean?
Well, I don't mean it personally. I'm talking about the theology that you presented, and that's what I want to focus on here. The theology that you presented was, from what I heard, a sort of an exposition with regard to why the boundaries between entities and peoples ought to be viewed as blurred and not as definitive and as separate. And you gave examples. The one example that sticks out of my mind that you gave was that given that we were in the Passover season, a person can't possibly remove all of the leaven from the home because there's going to be some speck of leaven somewhere. So it's impossible, therefore, to maintain this perfect separation in that case between the leaven and the non. And I felt that was just a disingenuous presentation. But could you comment a bit on, because first of all, obviously you can't, but the purpose of religion generally and the purpose of Judaism specifically is to do those definitions. We can't possibly, we're not perfect people, this is not a perfect world, but isn't the purpose of religion to try to strive to create these separations as an ideal? Shouldn't we be holding up as a principle the goal, and shouldn't we understand the value of identifying separations? Isn't that what the Torah is all about?
Well, for me, that isn't what I would say the Torah is all about. And although the Torah is very concerned with separations, and as I'm sure you know, one of the key words of the holiness codes in the Torah is kadosh, which refers to separation. And that's an attribute of God, and, you know, the Jewish people are supposed to be kadosh, so you're absolutely right that Judaism emphasizes separation. But I think that when I read the Torah, even more important than separation, or rather that separation is understood as one aspect of something that is larger and actually more important, which is relationship. So God is kadosh, but that doesn't mean God is supposed to be seen as utterly separate from humanity and from human experience. Far from it. When we talk about the laws of holiness and purity with regard to sacrifices, those laws acknowledge that people move in and out of states of ritual purity because that's the way that human experience is. We move both in and out. And in fact, holiness, in the sense of separation, kadosh, is given meaning in relation to other states of human being and human experience. My argument regarding Passover wasn't that we should disregard the laws of Passover that emphasize this act of separating. Far from it. I was saying that I think if you look at the way the Passover is structured and the way that it's connected to Jewish identity, from my perspective, it looks like it's designed to realize how complicated the idea of creating these kinds of boundaries is, and that these boundaries, in fact, are never absolute for human beings, partly because human beings aren't perfect, but also partly because the idea of these separations is imaginary. You know, reality actually doesn't divide itself up this way. And for me, this is of concern because these separations, which are often, you know, held up as you said, as, you know, a central aspect of the Torah and of Judaism, is certainly important. But from my perspective as a transgender Jew, I see the Torah as dealing with these binary categories. Something either is leavened or it isn't leavened. Something either is pure or it isn't pure. As I see the Torah itself as complicating the ideas of those absolute binaries, and Passover as a meditation on the fact that to some extent those binaries don't work and never work as a way of representing the actual complexity of human experience. That doesn't mean they're unimportant. In fact, I would say they're important precisely because, and as long as we recognize that they don't work, but it's important to realize what doesn't fit within them. And what particularly interested me wasn't so much the aspect of this relating to gender, although I think I read the Torah this way because of my experience of being transgender, but is the fact that the Torah links the observance of Passover and this absolute prohibition on leaven. It's a pretty clear command. You will have no leaven in your homes, with membership in the Jewish people and the basis of Jewish identity. So that command is tied up with this other sort of binary. You're either Jewish or you're not Jewish. But as I said in my talk, if you read the laws surrounding the laws of Passover, the Torah itself immediately complicates those questions. Well, there are people who aren't Jewish, but they're going to want to participate in the Passover sacrifice. And here's what you do with them. And then there are Jews who are Jewish, but they don't follow, the laws of Passover, and so they're cut off from their people. So they enter into some kind of other category. It's not binary anymore, right? There are people who are born Jewish who, according to the Torah, are cut off from their people by not following the laws of Passover. There are people who are not Jewish, but the Torah gives them a way to participate in the Passover sacrifice and ritual. And similarly, when you look at the halakha, the laws that have grown up around leaven, and the way that it should be treated, you see that the rabbis end up also creating additional categories based on their acknowledgement that reality is going to be more simple, that it's going to be more complicated than either, yeah, you have leaven in your house, or no, you don't have leaven in your house. So we do the nullification of leaven. We say, you know what, I've done my best, but if there is leaven in my house, I want it to be considered as though it's outside my house. So now we, in addition to the category of leaven that's inside the house and, you know, a house that does have leaven and a house that doesn't have leaven, we have the category of houses that do have some leaven in them, but that leaven has been classified as being outside rather than inside. So,
right. Now, Joy, what I hear there is that you're discussing, in a sense, and accurately identifying the natural world, which is not, which is highly imperfect and which is very much interacting and interlapping, and that I would argue that the rabbis who interpret the Torah and who put forth these means of functioning within a Torah context, but at the same time recognizing the realities of the natural world, they're trying to make the Torah and Jewish life something that one can function, because we're not perfect people, because we can't possibly live up to every letter of the Torah. But nevertheless, the Torah itself is something that's beyond the natural world. It's the supernatural world. What it does is identify some basic entities of existence right out of the first sentence of the Torah, right out of the book of Genesis, when God separates the light from the darkness, and then he separates the land from the sea, separates the animal kingdom from the land, separates men and women from the animal kingdom, and separates men and women. And then from there it gets into very complex separations of people in terms of, behaviors and how to conduct oneself and how to interact with other people and how to behave socially, both as individuals and as nations. And also the development of sovereign nations, the development of separate governments, the development of property.
I'm sorry, Chuck,
all of that stuff is there.
You're saying a lot of really important things, but there are a lot of things. I'd just like to go back to one of the earlier steps before the political and national stuff and talk about that first, and then I do want to get back to what you were saying about the separation of nations and things, but I feel like if we try to talk about all of it at once, it'll be difficult to be clear. So I'm not trying to cut you off. I just want to break it into parts, if that's okay.
Sure.
So you are right that some parts of the first chapter of Genesis talk about separation as part of creation. That's absolutely true. But other parts don't. Animals are not created through separation. God creates animals and fish and birds, and, there is no talk of separation there. It's true that waters are spoken of as being separated, and distinction between dry land and heaven and earth. So their separation is an important part of creation, but it is not actually the only part of creation. And
could I just interject briefly here, and just to comment on that, and that is that by creating animals without specifically and explicitly saying that there's a separation, just simply by identifying the existence of an animal as an institution, as an entity, that de facto creates a separation. It means that this animal is now a separate entity, and then within that identification, you've got different animals who are separate from each other. It's implied.
Yes, but if we're serious, if we're taking the Torah's text, if we say that the way the Torah says things is important because it's a holy document, and this is the way the Torah has traditionally been understood, that it's not the general concepts of the Torah alone, but actually the specific words and even
the interpretation,
the lettering of the Torah.
We have to take a brief break. Sorry about that, Joy.
Sorry.
We'll be right back. Sit tight. We'll be right back with the commercial. We'll be right back.
589%. 589%? That is how much more fat you could burn if you were using the 10-2 and a chew weight loss system from ILikeHowILook.com. Hi, how in the world are you anyway? I'm Andy Willoughby. A double-blind controlled clinical study showed that the 10-2 and a chew weight loss system burned 589% more fat than exercise and dieting alone. Think how much easier it'll be to lose weight. Go to ILikeHowILook.com and read the study for yourself. You swallow a small capsule at 10, another at 2, and eat a tasty collagen protein candy chew anytime you need a snack. And with that, you could burn 589% more fat. Watch the video at ILikeHowILook.com to get the full story. Most people notice a curbed appetite and more energy the very first day. It's safe, all natural, there's a money-back guarantee, and they'll even send you free samples. Go to ILikeHowILook.com. ILikeHowILook.com.
Warning, if you or a loved one are struggling with drugs and alcohol, there's something you need to know. Thoughts like, I can stop anytime, I'm not hurting anyone, it's my life, are lies. These lies cause you to drink or get high even when you've promised yourself or someone else you wouldn't. You may feel all alone, but you're not. We're here to help. Take the first step. Call us today at 800-461-3329 for a free no-obligation assessment. Your insurance may even cover the full cost of treatment. Please don't wait. Call 800-461-3329. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Call American Drug Treatment Centers to speak with our trained staff. We'll walk you through getting yourself or a loved one into treatment even if they won't admit there's a problem. The truth is, drugs and alcohol want you dead. Don't let them win. One simple call will start you on the road to recovery. Call 800-461-3329 now. It will be the best thing you ever do. Call 800-461-3329. 800-461-3329.
Owning and caring for a home comes with a lot of to-dos. Fix the AC, build a deck, remodel the kitchen. Whatever your home improvement need, Home Advisor can help you find a pro you can trust to get the job done right. Go to rebuild.homeadvisor.com for instant access to top-rated pros in your area, including electricians, handymen, remodelers, whatever type of home pro you need. Home Advisor is absolutely free to use. At Home Advisor, you don't have to search through a long list of pros. With just a few clicks, Home Advisor matches you with pros who provide the exact services you need. You can read customer reviews of the pros, even use the cost guide to find out what hundreds of other home projects cost in your area. Because Home Advisor knows it's important to find a pro you can trust in your home, they conduct background checks on their service professionals. It's just one of the reasons more than 25 million homeowners have used Home Advisor. Go to rebuildhomeadvisor.com to find the right pro for your project. That's rebuild.homeadvisor.com.
Don't complain about your cable bill going up and up and up. Do something about it. Grab a pen and jot down this special number. Call 800-919-8536. The more cable TV rates go up, the better digital satellite TV looks. Say goodbye to the cable guy and get more of your favorite channels in 100% digital quality for much less money. Call 800-919-8536. Sign up for packages starting as low as $19.99. Best of all, there's no equipment to buy. You get free HD TV upgrade, a free DVR upgrade, and free professional installation. You control what you watch when you watch it. Record your favorite shows, pause and rewind live TV, even skip the commercials, and watch local channels too. At just $19.99, what are you waiting for? Call 800-919-8536. Say goodbye to the cable guy. Cut cost and get more. Call today. 800-919-8536. That's 800-919-8536. Again, 800-919-8536.
Chuck Morse speaks.
Thanks so much. My guest is Joy Ladin. She is a professor at Yeshiva University, a professor of English. We're talking here basically about Judaism and Torah, and the separations that the Torah talks about, the separation between sacred and profane, and how we as individuals can live in a naturalist world where separations are blurred, in a way that we can try to strive toward understanding those separations and live with that and integrate that into life as a way to advancing ourselves, as a way to being holy, and not engaging in to'eva. Joy, please continue.
Yes, thank you. So before the break, we were talking about the first chapter of Genesis and the account of the creation of the world. And you pointed out very rightly that in some of those verses, creation is described as separation. So, for example, God creates light but doesn't create darkness. And when God creates light, then there's a need to separate light from darkness, and light and darkness are established as separate and mutually exclusive categories. That's what we would call a binary. Something is either light or it's darkness. It can't be both. And that happens with several other acts of creation. Heaven and earth, you're either part of the heavens or you're part of the earth. And there are other kinds of separations. However, there are also acts of creation that are not phrased in terms of separation. The creation of light originally is not phrased in terms of separation. It's like there's light, and then after there's light, it's separated from the darkness. The creation of different creatures, as you pointed out, they're separately created, right? They're created as something distinct from the earth and the waters, but their creation is not described in terms of separation, nor are they described as being separated from one another, and there are multiple categories of them. So those acts of creation do not establish binaries in the way that the separation of light and darkness or the creation of heaven and earth establishes binary categories. The creation of human beings, likewise, human beings are created in ways that mark them as clearly something other than animals, but they are not separated from animals the way light is separated from darkness. It's just not discussed in those terms. And the reason that I'm emphasizing this is to say that although separation and the creation of, there's separation in general, there's like human beings you can't actually use language without making distinctions. It's absolutely true. The Torah represents kind of a gamble on God's part, trying to translate divine awareness into human language that's designed to reflect human consciousness rather than divine consciousness. That's always going to be a stretch. But some of the Torah, particularly the laws regarding holiness, depend on strict and absolute binary distinctions, right? You can eat this, you cannot eat that. But the Torah also talks in other and more complicated ways about the relationships between different things and different kinds of things. And I would argue that when it comes to creating creatures, we in the first chapter of Genesis, that language of strict separation is not being used as part of the creation. The focus is more on, I'm making this, and now I'm making this, and now I'm making this, and now I'm making human beings. And the focus of the narration of the creation of human beings is not on how they're different from animals. It's Joy, what they are in themselves.
I think that what I hear you doing is what sometimes fundamentalist Protestants do, and mistakenly, in doing a very strict fundamentalist interpretation of the Torah without context. You're looking at words, and you're saying because it doesn't say there's a separation here, specifically using a word, when in fact the Jewish way is not to do it that way. The Jewish way is called Pardes.
I'm sorry, Chuck. I'm really insulted by that. I'm not doing what fundamentalists do because I'm not taking
that's what I hear.
Ideology and imposing and I'm explaining what's different.
I'm not saying ideology. I'm saying interpretation of the Torah.
Right, but that's
I'm talking about your interpretation of Torah.
Fundamentalists
You're looking at
don't read the language of the Torah. I'm doing what's called a close reading. I'm an English professor. Trust me on this. What I'm doing is I'm saying the way the Torah says things has meaning. And if we look at the language that the Torah uses and we recognize it, and we recognize both the resonances, places where, it says separation, and also the differences, that is a bearer of meaning. In this, I'm following people like Rashi, but I'm also drawing more, in terms of my degree and my specialization, I'm drawing on techniques that are called...
Did you know by age 50, half of all men have an enlarged prostate? This means more urges to urinate, longer bathroom trips, waking at night to urinate, or issues with sex. If this sounds familiar, call us now, because we're shipping free bottles of Super Beta Prostate to listeners of this station. Super Beta Prostate is a non-prescription formula guaranteed to reduce the symptoms of your enlarged prostate. It's yours free. Pay only shipping and handling. Just call 1-800-391-6916. In clinical trials, the ingredient in Super Beta Prostate was shown to reduce urges to urinate, improve bladder emptying, reduce waking at night to urinate, and improve quality of life. This Super Beta Prostate free offer is for listeners of this station, but it won't last. Don't wait. Just call 1-800-391-6916. That's 1-800-391-6916. Call 1-800-391-6916.
Hi, I'm Joan London. When I needed to find senior care for my mom, I really struggled to find the right fit until I found an advisor, someone who had been through this before. That's why I recommend A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. They have experts who will help you ask the right questions and find the right place. Call A Place for Mom today.
To speak with the local senior living advisor, call A Place for Mom at 1-800-469-7591. That's 1-800-469-7591.
A Place for Mom has helped over 200,000 families find the right senior care for their parents, from assisted living to independent living, even Alzheimer's care, and have local advisors that can help explain your options at no cost to you.
To speak with the local senior living advisor, call A Place for Mom at 1-800-469-7591. That's 1-800-469-7591.
Call today.
Chuck Morse speaks.
Thanks so much. And my guest is Joy Ladin from Yeshiva University. Joy, when I say that I hear your interpretation of the Torah as being similar to a Protestant-style interpretation, I don't mean that to be insulting. I mean, I actually admire Protestants and their interpretation. It's just different than the Jewish approach, which is more layered and more nuanced. And
right.
and I'm not bringing up any personal comments here.
My approach is different than the way you're reading Torah, but it's deeply grounded in Jewish tradition and has, I've studied Torah with fundamentalists. You didn't say just Protestants. You said that I was doing a fundamentalist reading, and I've done some Torah study with fundamentalists, and they approach the text. They don't do close readings on the text. They do other things because they read the Torah as part of a larger whole that is really defined by the New Testament, not in and of itself. So I'm just saying what I'm doing is different, and it's close reading, which is directly tied to literary practices that emerged in the early 20th century. But those practices are, my practice of that, and I think those practices are also grounded in deeply Jewish approaches to textual study. For example, when you look at Rashi. I mean, if you had Rashi on this program, boy, wouldn't that be cool? If you had Rashi on this program and you said, Rashi, don't talk to me about, the difference between this verb form and that verb form. You're doing a Protestant fundamentalist interpretation. Rashi would laugh at you. That's not what he's doing. He's saying the Torah is so saturated with meaning that we need to be ultra conscious of the words that are used and the way those words are used. In other words, we need to do close reading.
Understood. But Rashi's motivation with regard to that close reading and the rabbis of the Talmudic times and Rambam is to try to get closer to an understanding of what God meant by the words of the Torah. And I think when you say that because the Torah doesn't explicitly say there's a separation when he creates man out of animals, I would argue that it's implied. That this is, at best, it's just like we know in modern life that when you work in a company, you don't use the F word or the S word. You don't have to have it written down. You understand it. It's implied in the general meaning of understanding. And I think that I would argue, and I would suggest, maybe people can think otherwise, that when the Torah identifies man and women separately and as separate from the animals by saying that they're created in the image of God, that is a separation. It doesn't have to say that. It's just it's as Thomas Jefferson might say, it's self-evident.
So let me see if this will help bridge our ways of looking at this.
Sure.
When you say there's a difference between milk and meat, right? And we know that that's a difference that's important in Jewish law regarding keeping kosher, right? So you have to notice that milk and meat are different. You have to know what milk and meat are, how to tell one from the other, right? Absolutely.
Correct.
But to say that they're different, which is something that everybody, I think, including non-Jews who don't care about separating them, would say, yeah, they're different. That's right. Milk and meat are different. But when you make a separation between them, when you say milk cannot be eaten at the same time as meat, and in fact there has to be a certain amount of time and dishes and everything, making a separation is different than simply noting a difference. Making a separation is giving significance to a difference. It's giving, in the case of many of the separations that you're pointing out and are concerned with, these are operational differences. They're saying it's not just, the world's full of different kinds of foods, but these foods have to be separated. It's not just that they're different, they have to be separated. And what I'm saying is if you look at the creation of humanity, the emphasis in that creation is, they're created, differently, and the way that human beings are talked about in creation is significantly different than the way animals are talked about when they're being created. Absolutely. But there's no emphasis in that place on separation.
A Truth Talk defender, Chuck Morse,
sorry about that. This part of the show gets a little choppy with commercials.
Chuck hosts the radio talk show Chuck Morse Speaks, which is nationally syndicated. He's the author of books and numerous columns that have been published broadly. Chuck received the 2003 Communicator of the Year award and was named a Heavy 100 radio talk host by Talkers Magazine. When Chuck Morse speaks, people listen.
For taking possession of this tiny holy land so that the Jew can serve God, not conquer the world.
To hear Chuck live, go to usaradio.com. To hear Chuck with Deborah Ray on Truth Talk Beyond the Soundbite, visit the on-demand page at deborahray.us.
Most of us have pondered about the one universal question. Is there a God? And if there is there any absolute proof? It is for that exact reason why my good friend Sam Sorbo and I, Maurice Forte, have written our book, The Answer, Proof of God in Heaven. In essence, the answers in our book are surprisingly simple as they're true. Just as light will eliminate darkness, so does the law, which in Greek is called cosmos, eliminate the possibility of chance. Therefore, chance had no part in the creation of the law of this cosmos. And so the only other possibility is that the law was created by a creator that we call God. The Answer, Proof of God in Heaven, is probably one of the most powerful books that truly proves the existence of God via His universal laws, and with it that of an eternal soul and everlasting life. Please find our book, The Answer, Proof of God in Heaven, now on Amazon.com or at our website, theanswer-book.com.
Bad credit card debt happens to good people. Credit card companies lure you in with low introductory rates or low minimum payments, and before you know it, you owe thousands of dollars in credit card debt. It has happened to millions of good people just like you. But here's the good news. Thanks to a powerful program now approved, anyone with $2,000 or more in credit card debt can cut their credit card payments up to half and even reduce or eliminate interest charges altogether. That's right. Our nationwide nonprofit program is helping U.S. residents cut their credit card payments. Call 800 800-991-6376 now. The call and information are free. Credit Guard has helped over 500,000 people with their credit card debt, and now we can help you. Call 800-991-6376 to see how this powerful nonprofit program can work for you. Bad credit card debt happens to good people. Get free of credit card debt today. Call 800-991-6376. That's 800-991-6376. Again, 800-991-6376.
You'll want to listen when Chuck Morse speaks.
Thanks so much, and my guest is Joy Ladin. We're talking about biblical issues here. Joy, I mean, again, I think that the Torah both discusses separations from a religious standpoint, but it also comports with nature as well, and with science. When it identifies separations of people and identifies separations of nature, it's kind of the situation that seems to me to be one in which faith and science are not necessarily separate. In fact, I don't think they are. But please continue.
So I guess what I'm saying is that if you look at that, the idea of distinctions, that things are different, is not the same as saying that things have to be separated or should be considered separately. That you have to distinguish in binary terms between something is either holy or it's an abomination. Something is either pure or it's impure. Something is either kosher or it's not kosher. Those are separations. And if you look at I know we're running out of time here, but if you look at the way the first chapter of Genesis talks about the creation of animals and human beings, you'll see that, yes, human beings are created differently, and they're created as different from animals. But rather than talking about the separation between human beings and animals, God talks about the relationship between them. God says, you're supposed to rule over the earth, right? You are different. You have a different role, but the way that the Torah's emphasis, God's emphasis, is not on separation, but on relationship. And there are other places in the Torah where the emphasis is in
but the relationship only can happen. The relationship is based on the premise that there is a separation. I mean, the separation is a given, and then
that difference is not.
Call it what you want. I think we're getting semantic. I mean, I think. I mean, it seems to me that the idea of the separation is kind of an obvious given, both naturally and theologically. And then once that's identified, then yes, the Torah gets into how to have a relationship, how individuals should relate to each other, what's a proper relationship and what isn't. And and even further than that, it gets into the relationship between nations and what's proper and what isn't. But in order to get to that, there's some basic identification of the separation. We'll be right back, and we'll conclude the interview.
Most of us have pondered about the one universal question. Is there a God? And if there is there any absolute proof? It is for that exact reason why my good friend Sam Sorbo and I, Maurice Forte, have written our book, The Answer, Proof of God in Heaven. In essence, the answers in our book are surprisingly simple as they're true. Just as light will eliminate darkness, so does the law, which in Greek is called cosmos, eliminate the possibility of chance. Therefore, chance had no part in the creation of the law of this cosmos. And so the only other possibility is that the law was created by a creator, that we call God. The Answer, Proof of God in Heaven, is probably one of the most powerful books that truly proves the existence of God via His universal laws, and with it that of an eternal soul and everlasting life. Please find our book, The Answer, Proof of God in Heaven, now on Amazon.com or at our website, theanswer-book.com.
Author, journalist, an American patriot. This is Chuck Morse Speaks.
Thanks so much, and my guest is Joy Ladin, Yeshiva University. Joy, we're reaching toward the end of the program, and I really want to thank you for joining me. I hope we can part as friends, and to my way of thinking, it's been a very interesting conversation. I mean, I feel that the entire edifice of the Torah and of faith and of Judaism is to identify the differences and the separations between people and nations, both for religious reasons, but also because it's dealing with reality. There are differences, there are separations. And once those things are established, then we can understand how to get along with each other, how to interact properly. But I want you to have the last word.
Well, I think that Judaism has been around for about 3,000 years, and it has existed in many forms, and it's far too large for any one interpretation to encompass all of it. And I think your interpretation is one that is shared by many people. It's not shared by me, but I don't think that to get back to your opening remarks, I don't think that my interpretation of it is heretical or Protestant or in some way not Jewish. I think it's just belongs to a different family of ways of thinking about the Torah. So thank you very much for this conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Joy. I appreciate it. Okay,
You're
so
welcome.
that is Joy. Thank you, and we'll do it again sometime, hopefully. Joy Ladin, she's the David and Ruth Goatsman Professor of English and the Director of the Barron Writing Center. Joy, do you want to let people know where they can read articles by you and about you?
Oh,
okay,
well, I'm very Googleable. My memoir of gender transition through the door of life, a Jewish journey between genders, was a National Jewish Book Award finalist and is readily available through Amazon and in some bookstores. My 7th book of poetry, Impersonation, has just been published. And have essays and articles about me have appeared kind of all over the place. One place to look would be to go to the onbeing.org website. I did an interview with Krista Tippett that they present very nicely.
Excellent. Yeah, it's interesting. My daughter told me that after attending your session, she said a lot of the things that you said reminded her of things that she's heard me say. So, I mean, that's very interesting. But anyway, Joy, thanks so much again for joining me this afternoon. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Chuck. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. And we shall be back. We're getting a call in by Skype from 2 people in Iraq right now who are talking about situation on the ground, as the Israelis like to say. And one of them has been a guest on this program before, that being Lieutenant Colonel Sargis Sangari. My other guest, Matthew Van Dyke, is a reporter who has one heck of a story to tell. He was held a prisoner in Iraq for about a year, and he's going to be talking about. They're both going to be talking about what they see as the disintegration of the situation in Iraq with regard to not just the persecution of the Christian minority in the north, those being the Assyrian Christian community, which is, of course, an ancient community in Iraq that's been there since the days of Jesus. I mean, we're talking about people who were amongst the earliest of Christians, and they are undergoing what I would think is obviously could be described as a slow-motion Holocaust, which is actually becoming a faster-motion Holocaust. And the world community is standing by and saying nothing in a way that, quite frankly, is reminiscent of the deafening silence in the face of the Nazi Holocaust against the Jews. I don't know if it's as bad in that with the Nazi Holocaust you actually had a conference of liberal nations, the United States, Britain, Canada, get together in Evian, France, and actually decide to not allow Jews to leave Germany in the face of, this was after Kristallnacht, the Jews were being put in concentration camps. One of the great disgraces of world history, something that's not discussed loudly enough. I'm not sure the situation is that bad, but there has not been much acknowledgement on the part of our leadership or on the part of the leadership in the Western democracies with regard to the conscious and deliberate and coordinated persecution and slaughter of Christians in Arab and Islamic countries right now. And of course, it's not just Christians. You've got the Yazidi people in Iraq who actually are Zoroastrian, from what I understand, who are facing slaughter. You've got, the Kurds in the north are basically in an insecure position as well. So we'll be talking about the disintegration and the diminution of law and order, basically, in Iraq and in the greater area when we come back.
Did you know that by losing just 10 pounds, you could reduce your risk of heart disease, diabetes, and arthritis by a whopping 50%? Hi, how in the world are you anyway? I'm Andy Willoughby from ILikeHowILook.com. I have found something that could help you lose 10 to 15 pounds in the next 30 days without starving yourself or exercising to exhaustion. Just go to ILikeHowILook.com and watch the short video. ILikeHowILook.com uses hydrolyzed collagen protein to help you lose weight and tone up. They also have a thermogenic capsule that could curb your appetite, improve your mood, give you more energy, and the best part is that it burns fat like a blowtorch. I introduced this to some of my friends a few months ago. Within just a couple of weeks, most were losing weight and dropping dress and pant sizes faster than they could buy new clothes. So watch the video at ILikeHowILook.com, and maybe soon you'll be saying, I like how I look.
Chuck Morse speaks.
Thanks so much. And again, I've got some pretty interesting guests coming up in hour number 2. Again, want to thank Professor Joy Ladin from Yeshiva University for what I thought was a very interesting conversation, one that I was looking forward to having. And I kind of learned a little bit from yesterday's guest about not letting, when you have differences of opinion, sometimes the opponent might resort to personal comments. And when somebody says to me that I'm personally attacking them, that's really what's really going on there, especially in these cases, is that they're attacking me, is that they are denigrating me and trying to send out dog whistles that I'm not to be taken seriously. So I think that I'm learning to identify that as such, because when you have these difficult conversations where there is real difference of opinion, it's easy and it's shorthand to stoop to the level of saying, well, you're insulting me, or you're implying, which implies that I have something against them. And that's a very damning thing to say about someone. It could be very damaging. And it also diminishes the discussion, and it switches the topic away from an intellectual discussion, which there can be a difference of opinion displayed, and where one side may not have the advantage in the real areas of reasoning, to a conversation about shifting it to the attention becomes me or becomes them, or it gets personal. So I need to strive, and I am striving to keep the conversation from stooping to that, because if you hand that as a weapon, then you're going to lose. My intention is not to attack people personally. I've got nothing against anyone. I've got nothing against gays or transgenders or anything else. It's not it. I don't think most people do, by the way. But at the same time, you can disagree with points of view that are expressed and argue them on a higher plane, and that's what I'm trying to do here. Anyway, check out my books as well. They are available at Amazon or Amazon Kindle. You just put my name in the server, Chuck Morse, M-O-R-S-E, like Morse code, and up they come. So check it out. We'll be back after news. You're listening to the USA Radio Networks. We shall return.
If you get up to use the bathroom multiple times a night, if you've ever had to rush to get to a bathroom or worried that a hard laugh or cough could cause an embarrassing accident, if bladder control issues are a real concern for you or your aging parents, please listen to this important message. Healthy Control is an all-natural bladder control formula with ingredients proven to relieve urgency, reduce frequency of urination, reduce embarrassing bladder leakage, and the number of nighttime trips to the bathroom. Now we're giving away a free 30-day supply to callers from this area. Call 800-918-4177 now for details. With Healthy Control, you'll feel more confident and comfortable, and finally get a full night's sleep again. Take charge of when and how often you go to the bathroom. Call now for details on how to receive your free 30-day supply of Healthy Control at 800-918-4177. Hurry, this free offer will not last long. Call 800-918-4177 to find out how to get your free 30-day supply of Healthy Control. That's 800-918-4177. Again, 800-918-4177.
You make the decision to buy the home, then you're faced with what's next. What do we do?
We started at Realtor.com.
Realtor.com gave us a lot more current information.
Listings are pulled directly from the MLS every 15 minutes.
Once you've gone through all of that, the realtor makes it happen.
We worked with the realtor that really knew the area.
And he knew the market.
When you have someone who has the expertise, it makes it so much easier.
Realtor.com and Realtors. Together, we make home happen. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, U.S. Tax Shield can help you take back control. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Our team of tax attorneys can stop collections and get you protected. U.S. Tax Shield offers a price protection guaranteed quote to get you protected today. U.S. Tax Shield is A+ rated with the BBB, so call 800-479-2697. U.S. Tax Shield, 800-479-2697.
A Boston conservative in the cradle of liberty. You'll want to listen when Chuck Morse speaks.
Thank you very much. Hour number 2 of Chuck Morse Speaks, Monday through Friday, 10 to noon Eastern Standard Time here at the USA Radio Networks. You're welcome to join the program. 919-896-8198. 919-896-8198. This is really an extraordinary hour here. My two guests are coming in to us from Iraq, where situation there is deteriorating, it seems, quite quickly. We have returning to the program, U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Sagar Sangari. He grew up in Iran. He's of ethnic Assyrian family. He's the CEO of the Near East Center for Strategic Engagement, 6 years of continuous combat deployment in the Middle East. And we're also joined by Matt Van Dyke. He is a revolutionary former journalist, one-time POW who spent 165 days in solitary confinement, and a filmmaker. Let me start with you, Lieutenant Colonel Sangari, and thank you for joining me. We talked about the what I would argue is almost a slow motion turning into a fast motion genocide against the Assyrian Christians of the Nineveh Plain in the northern part of Iraq. This is a Christian community that goes back to the days of shortly after the crucifixion of Christ. It's one of the oldest Christian communities in the world, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who are at risk of being slaughtered, who are being driven out of their homes. What is going on right now on the ground, as it were?
Well, Chuck, thanks for having me again. The reality hasn't changed. We still have 660,000, and according to UN sources, there are refugees driven from their home, Pablo River Valley, and also the Nineveh Plains. They are currently within the borders of Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and including Iran. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality we're facing. If you look at the first genocide that took place in the 20th century, which was against the Armenians, Assyrians, and also the Greeks, Assyrians lost estimated 750,000 at that time, and we're right now at 660,000 refugees.
So it sounds to me like they're just going after them with both fists, and yet at the same time you talked about the Assyrians developing a militia for the first time, one that's been very effective, but one that needs help. What's going on with the Assyrian militia?
Well, there's militias, but what we have talked about in the past has been the Assyrian army. It's been recognized as the Assyrian army. That's how it's being reported as the Assyrian army. That's how it's been tracked by coalition forces as an Assyrian army. They never refer to it as a militia. There's various different groups with different names, but the reality was, as of last year in August 2014, when the Kurds basically left the Nineveh Plain region, when ISIS forces attacked at that time, The Shia loaded up in two C-130s, flew back to Baghdad. Their commanders abandoned the battlefield. The Sunnis that either were trying to escape and were not in the ISIS supporters on the ground escaped into the Syrian villages. So what happened was that the Syrians got cleared out of the Nineveh plains. They escaped into Ankawa, where recently the car bombing took place against our consulate. They're currently in refugee status there. That specific force, just so you know, had success on the ground tactically, not just at the tactical level, but at operational level, and it was starting to have strategic effects. October of last year, when the various different regional forces on the ground saw that there's success taking place here, that the U.S. Special Forces were actually working with the Syrians on top of their headquarters, conducting attacks against the enemy positions in the villages that would have to be cleared before Mosul was taken. They started recruiting Assyrians. Currently, Assyrians are fighting under the Kurdish flag within a brigade that the Kurds put together. They have various different forms of militia. They have protection forces that they have established. They are fighting with the Shia. What has happened because of that, it sucked the forces away from the Assyrians, which led to the 37 communities being eradicated in the Poplar River Valley. And if that trend is not halted, then the Assyrian army would come to be a non-existent force on the ground. And then the Assyrians would have to be under the Kurdish, Sunni, and Shia leadership and civilian administration within the region.
It sounds to me like putting aside the fact that the international community in the United States is turning a blind eye to our Assyrian allies who are actually in a position where they can defeat ISIS. We have essentially ISIS on the march. I want to bring in Matt Van Dyke. Matt, you're a journalist, an award-winning journalist who's been out in the field in the real sense. You're a journalist in the old-fashioned way, the way where people go out and actually do a story. There is a book coming out in Great Britain by a journalist which says that the Obama administration, and particularly Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, basically were responsible for installing al-Maliki in Iraq, who is a Shiite activist and somewhat of a radical, as opposed to a more moderate leader, and that is what has tipped the apple cart, so-called, with regard to now the disenfranchised and disgruntled Sunnis who are rallying to the cause of ISIS. What do you see going on over there, Matt, from your perspective?
Well, I just want to clarify when I start. I'm a former journalist. I haven't done journalism since 2009. What I'm doing in Iraq now is my company, Sons of Liberty International, has been training Assyrian Christians in the Nineveh Plain Protection Units. But to answer your question, Maliki was elected by Iraqis. Not too much blame can be put on the United States for that. It was their choice. We should have been more forceful in our dealings with Maliki as far as diplomatic pressure that we put on him. And instead, we sort of stepped back and let him increase the sectarian divides within the country, and now's the result. You have Sunnis supporting ISIS, not because they like ISIS, but because they hate the Shia-led government so much. So it definitely contributed to the problems, but at the end of the day, we gave them democracy, and they chose Maliki, and people need to learn from the consequences of their elections. And it looks like they have. They did not choose Maliki. Again, he's been removed, so at least there's some hope for democracy in Iraq.
Well, I mean, I only would add that this reporter from Britain says that we actually backed and aided Maliki and undermined a more secular opponent. But you're there at the Nineveh Plain. What is going on, Matt, over there right now?
Well, the Nineveh Plain region is full of people that want to serve and defend their lands. The question is whether they do it under the Peshmerga or they do it as an independent force. The Nineveh Plain Protection Units, which is a battalion that my company trained, want to be an independent force. And this is different from the Christians that the Peshmerga have recruited. There's a few Christian groups like this operating in the Nineveh Plain, and these are men that are have good attitude towards the United States and want to take on ISIS and want to defend their lands and want to make sure that nothing like what has just happened happens to them again. They've lost Karakosh, which is the capital of Christianity in Iraq. Tens of thousands lost their homes in Mosul. And they're ready to take them back, and they're ready to make sure it never happens again.
Is there any feasibility in these forces merging with the Peshmerga, given that they're both on the same side in their opposition to ISIS?
I missed the first part of your question.